Hi, I'm JB Jones,
And I'm Bella Naiman.
and we're the co-founders of NYC Jewelry Week. We are excited to welcome you to our 6th year New York City Jewelry Week 2023.
Welcome to our virtual talks program. On our YouTube channel, you'll get to enjoy incredible content that we've put together for you with the theme of iconography, looking at the past, present, and future of jewelry.
You can see the full schedule on our website at nycjewelryweek.com, and we invite you to explore all the programs there. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for joining us for today's discussion, Jewelry and the New E-Commerce Experience. Today's conversation will cover the most essential jewelry e-commerce trends and experiences, from the ways digital savvy consumers are discovering and elevating today's hottest jewelry designers, to the innovations retailers are leveraging to deliver exceptional online connections and confidence to customers. Today's discussion will be led by me, Michelle Graff, Editor-in-Chief of National Jeweler, and will bring together thought leaders from across the industry. Essential e-commerce insights will provide a compelling look at the jewelry industry's journey to deliver exceptional online experiences to consumers and collectors. This is an amazing opportunity to hear insights from some of today's most influential jewelry leaders, including Ben Smithee, Principal and CEO at the Smithee Group, Andrew Brown, the founder of myGemma, and Nina Skol, who works as the Director of Luxury Jewelry, Handbags and Accessories at eBay. Ben, Andrew, and Nina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Michelle.
So all of you today have years of experience in the fine jewelry industry. So can you tell me, how have you seen the e-commerce experience evolve during your time in the industry? And Ben, I'm going to start with you on this one.
First off, excited to be here and chat with everybody. And second, I think it's evolved dramatically, and I'd say a short amount of time. When I started in the industry back in 2011 in jewelry. With my first company, which was a consumer insights and research company, and then I would say the e-commerce piece of it was, for the most part, especially if you went to independent retailers, independent designers, things like that. It was very limited, if really non-existent, kind of, for the most part. People were first getting on social in terms of brand equity and brand development, but really when it comes to e-commerce, it's really non-existent. And then, so since then, if you look at a little over a decade, it's gone from non-existent to, hey, how do we really develop brands online? How do we sell online? How do we partner with brands online? So I think it's done a complete 180 in terms of it's completely evolved from where we saw a lot of other industries in 2011 to now, to looking at, unique platforms, live selling, social selling, third-party selling, reselling, all the things. So I'd say it's done a complete evolution since when I started.
I'm just going to jump in. From my vantage point, I would say there was almost a rejection of the idea of selling jewelry online when e-commerce first became a thing from the industry, like from my perspective.
Yeah, nobody will buy diamonds online.
Yeah, nobody will buy diamonds online. And that's a perfect way to put it, Ben. It's become a complete 180. Nina, what are your thoughts on the evolution of not only selling jewelry, but selling luxury online in your time in the industry?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today to speak with everyone. I think the one thing we've seen, over decades long careers in this industry is that it's constantly evolving and changing. And, we need to constantly evolve and change with it in order to not only meet customer demands, but also anticipate those demands and where people are going to be going in the future and how we can work towards, achieving that. I think in terms of the experience, it's evolved so much. Like Ben said, it's changed drastically over the last several years. I mean, going from everywhere, people not wanting to buy diamonds online, said they would never buy diamonds online, to now it's such a humongous industry in and of itself. And some of those big shifts that we've seen is really away from it being just a singular transaction online to really being its own standalone experience and meeting customers again, kind of where they're asking us to meet them. And experience is such a big part of that. And some of those things that we're seeing change and really dramatic in big ways is Gen Z and millennials are really driving a lot of that change. And they're asking retailers like eBay to, do things in different ways. So a lot of what we've been doing around, driving trust and innovation and in the digital space is really about how we continue to evolve that experience for them. And I think, some of the things that we're seeing too is, scarcity really continues to drive demand in this space. So a lot of the evolution that we've seen with fine jewelry in the e-commerce space is around scarcity and how do we continue to bring a breadth of inventory and a breadth of different designers and sellers and exclusivity and innovation to the space that it really wasn't there before. Pre-owned is something that's really evolving as well. I'm sure we'll get into that more in the discussion. But a lot of these things that we're seeing are around scarcity again and bringing a lot of these goods to people who are asking for them to be more accessible. And even, as we look at luxury goods and fine jewelry, watches, handbags, becoming their own asset class, and how that, again, continues to spur scarcity and demand within the e-commerce space is really fascinating.
Okay, thank you, Nina. Andrew?
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. As a luxury reseller, I can give a perspective from both kind of the buy side and the sell side. So maybe I'll focus on the buy side because we've touched on a lot of aspects of the sell side already. I would say resale, that's what we do, certainly 10 years ago carried a bit of a stigma. Now, the last 5 to 10 years, I think that's absolutely gone away. Resale and online is now seen as kind of the smarter, more sustainable way to shop. It enables the aspirational shopper to get on the Chanel ladder or the Cartier ladder that they just would never have been able to do before. So 10 years ago, we would see pushback from customers who are like, God, I'm not sending you a Cartier ring through like FedEx. It's never going to get to you. Right. And no matter what you assured them about, it's just some people would just never do it. But through a combination of world-class customer service, online reviews, you've finally got people over that aspect, the trust aspect, and the stigma has, in my mind, gone away. So I think that's kind of the key evolution factor that we've seen in jewelry e-commerce over the last 10 years, for sure.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And we're going to get more into Nina and Andrew. I think it's really interesting you both brought up pre-owned because we're going to talk more about that today for sure. So now I want to talk about the state of the market in 2023 right now. What are the emerging trends that are driving jewelry purchases right now, particularly among the millennials and the Gen Z consumers? So just for a frame of reference, the millennials are now 27 to about 42 years old. The millennials have grown up right before our eyes. And Gen Z is the next consumers coming up. They're about, the youngest are about 11, the oldest are about 26. So they're kind of coming into that age of, making jewelry purchases or perhaps even looking at engagement rings. So what are the trends there? And Nina, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, this is a great question. We spend so much time looking at this from our standpoint on eBay and how we can continue to evolve what we're doing to cater to that younger demographic. And I think it's incredibly important because they are asking us to meet them in different ways that the older, demographics or generations never really did. And it's causing us to kind of continue to innovate and provide a different experience for them. A lot of what we're doing here is around, featuring pre-owned and re-commerce. And those are some really big trends within the millennial and Gen Z generations in terms of how do we continue to put forward the sustainability message. Re-commerce as a whole is incredibly important. And, even just looking at vintage and antique and flipping items, we're seeing a lot more of that with this younger generation. eBay does a re-commerce report, and in the latest report, we had some really fascinating stats around Gen Z and millennials. And, one of the ones that I really loved was 80% of Gen Z actually bought a secondhand good in the last 12 months. And even furthermore, 1/3 of them have also sold an item. So you're really starting to see this ignition of kind of this buy sell flywheel, especially on a marketplace like eBay, where the younger generations are coming to not only look for pre-owned and sustainable goods, but they're also, selling them as well. And, for us as eBay, we need to continue to innovate and meet them where they are and provide those solutions for them to both buy and sell on the platform.
Nina, let me ask you a follow-up question. This is something that's always, of interest to retailers and anyone who wants to sell jewelry, really. Do you think that Gen Zs are more into sustainability, so to speak, and secondhand goods than millennials? Like, is that one of the differences you see between those two generations? And if so, can you speak a little bit about why you think that might be? And anyone can jump in here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are seeing that more so than any other generation previously. I think you started to see that shift a bit with millennials, but I think it's accelerating within the Gen Z demographic. And I think it's very important to them, from everything we've learned, to kind of have that sustainability attached to the brand. And the brand could be the retailer like eBay. It could be, an actual designer brand. It could be a seller, but they really want to have that connection point with who they're buying from in terms of understanding and connecting, with who they're buying from and making sure that sustainability connection is there. So it's increasingly important, I think, with Gen Z, more so than any other demographic that we've seen previously. And it's really shifting how we continue to look at catering to that demographic and how we can continue to do things a bit differently than we've done them before, because I think they're really demanding that of us.
Yeah, I'd say the backbone behind all that is sort of, we use an acronym just to kind of mirror the consumer, direct-to-consumer DTC thing, which is around discovery, trust, and conversion. And so brands today, whether it's, re-commerce, reselling, whether it's direct-to-consumer, new products, whatever that may be, you have to sort of exude excellence across all those things. You have to be excellent in terms of being able to be discovered, right? We have this sort of sea of sameness that's happening now. On the flip side of not selling online, now there's this influx of brands and platforms and all these things. So discovery and ease of being discovered is absolutely huge. Trust, which is intentionally in the middle there, is the pivot point of all of it, right? Trust doesn't mean you have to have a 100-year-old brand, right? People can easily trust a brand new brand that's out of the box. But building trust through content, through transparency, through value proposition, all that type of stuff is key. And then the third piece, which I think a lot of brands and organizations miss out on, is the conversion piece, meaning it's not easy to get someone to convert online still. They want to do it, and most people will mistake that for people don't want to buy online or don't want to shop online or won't spend that money online or whatever it is. That's absolutely false. It's how do you create a seamless, frictionless channel for conversion for people, that user journey, the user experience, investing in the front end and the back end, all of that. People are very, like, the e-commerce and many other industries has become so streamlined that in jewelry, we have to mirror and map to the common ecosystem, not expect people to deviate from that ecosystem, which they shop for everything else, to when they buy jewelry or a piece of jewelry. So I'd say those are the three areas. And I know your question was around like reselling and re-commerce, things like that, but I think it's across the board, really. Those are the three areas that people need to focus on.
Ben, can you speak a little bit to what you think? You mentioned that you have to make it a seamless experience. Where do you think the areas are where jewelry e-sellers are getting tripped up when it comes to, is it the checkout process? Is it the kind of being able to favorite things? What do you think is the areas where you see jewelry resellers kind of falling down online?
So I think it starts before that, without a whiteboard. If we could like sort of virtually whiteboard it out, there's this consumer journey pyramid, whether you're any business, any brand, any type of product. And at the bottom, it's unaware, right? And then it moves up to awareness, then it moves up to info seeking, and then it moves up to, conversion, ready to buy. The bottom is 60%, then there's 20%, then there's 17% and 3%. And I think a lot of brands focus on the bottom 60%, trying to run all these awareness ads and all these things. And then they focus on the top 3%, ready to buy. And they miss the most important, which is the middle 37%, which is they're aware, but but not interested enough to start info seeking and gathering, or we miss out completely on the info gathering piece. So before they even get to the conversion piece of it, right, that's simple usability. I think website usability, seamlessness there for payment processing, all of that. But the middle piece of it is information. It's how are we giving them the ability to find information about the organization, about the products, about whatever it is, to then be ready to convert. And then once they get to that conversion piece, that's, again, like front end design, usability, payment processors, all those pieces. But that's just technology, right? It's the middle piece where I think we're missing, and most brands are missing in the conversion process, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew, I want you to jump in. So we're talking here about emerging trends that are driving jewelry purchases right now among the millennials and Gen Z. So consumers, is kind of middle 20s through early 40s.
Yeah, I mean, to Ben's point on discovery, the emerging wave that we've seen this year is around live stream shopping as the channel. As probably people already know, China mastered this over the last few years, and it's a major channel. The US has really only kind of picked it up in the last year or so.
And Andrew, I'm sorry, could you explain for everyone, just in case they're not 100% clear, what exactly is live stream shopping?
I mean, think QVC on your computer.
Okay.
Right, jewelry shopping network on your computer. So we do live streams now, live stream shopping on several platforms to create awareness of product, awareness of our brand, and sell handbags, jewelry, and watches. And we've created a live stream shopping hub in our New York office, and we have creators come in, influencers come in from various platforms and sell our product to their audiences. And it's become a great channel. It's probably 15% of our revenue this year.
What do you think the younger consumers like about that?
I think they like the fact that they can do everything but touch and feel, right? They're shown the product, they're shown close-ups, they're shown the styling on the body, on the hand, and they get to really see the product much more so than you can get from a flat image on your screen. The host talks about the product, they'll educate you about the product, they'll show you all the condition issues if there are any. You don't get that from a flat screen.
And what are some of the kind of, if you were going to give somebody tips on how to do a live stream shopping event, what are some of the things you found at myGemma to be most important to, first getting people there, and second of all, engaging them?
Yeah, I mean, if once you have an audience, I mean, it's a matter of just taking time. It takes time to build an audience, but you want, I really guess, a variety of hosts and kind of different characters. Somebody with a personality, somebody that knows the product, that can really speak to the product and educate the customer about it as they're showcasing it.
See, and I think that's the magic right there. From a brand perspective, having a trusted advisor, and that's what's missing. And that is the magic of when we looked at traditional broadcast of HSN, QVC, those type of things. That trusted advisor plays a really, really important role, because even if they are a representative of the brand in that moment, it doesn't feel like it as much to the consumer, in the sense of like they're on equal playing ground as the consumer and advocating for whatever product or service. And I think that's a really big key point that I think some people miss out on, of the importance of that aspect. And that's the real value prop, I think, when it comes to live selling and live commerce.
Yeah. So we're going to return to the concept of trust in a minute here. I really want to talk about that because I think that's so important when you're selling online. But one more question before we move on the younger generation. How are most retailers online reaching younger consumers now? Is this Instagram, Reels, TikTok? Like, what are the big platforms? YouTube? What are the big platforms if you are advising a designer or retailer to if they wanted to reach younger consumers, where should they be putting their content?
Yeah. I mean, I can go first on my thoughts on that, just based on our data. Obviously, TikTok is a big trending topic there, but in terms of a lot of brands still really don't have a strong presence there.
And TikTok takes a lot of time. We'll say that. Like
it does. It can, yes.
Making videos and good videos for TikTok can be time consuming.
YouTube is excellent. YouTube is the new search when it comes to that. Third parties. So when you look at your eBays of the world, when you look at the third-party providers, when you look at platforms like myGemma, when you look at things like that, those specialized and nuanced sort of search engines and product-based search engines are huge places, and marketplaces and sort of the double-sided marketplaces are huge right now, because it removes a lot of the friction. Because if, like, right now, historically, when you were looking for engagement ring or a fashion piece of jewelry or something, your search mechanism is 50 browser tabs open, right? And when you look at, we do a lot of research where we'll do virtual ethnographies where we see screen shares of Gen Z, millennials, things like that, and you look at their mobile browsing, you look at their web browsing, and if you saw mine right now, you'd be mortified how many browser tabs I have open. But when it looks at that type of stuff, these third-party providers that are specialized in nuance give Gen Zers and millennials the ability to process lots of information very quickly through a specified platform, and that's very valuable to them. So I'd say YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram and Facebook are still great. And people don't realize Facebook still has a great resurgence and still has a huge platform of people on it. Facebook ads, Facebook Reels, they outperform so many other platforms right now, and it just, like, don't listen to the headlines of people saying stuff that aren't really in the data, because it's wrong. Facebook is still, like,
So
grossly
Facebook
popular.
is not just for boomers, Ben.
Not at all. Not at all.
Andrew or Nina, any thoughts on platforms before we move on?
I mean, for us, our focus is absolutely TikTok at the moment, from a targeting Gen Z and millennials, for sure. That's been our focal point for the last 9 to 12 months, and
That makes sense.
we'll continue to be.
And I think, like, Ben definitely hit on the major ones from a social perspective, right? But I think the common thread throughout, especially as we look at the younger generation, is really that connection point. So connectivity, how can we amplify the experience that they're getting from traditional e-commerce? And they're looking for new and exciting ways to kind of meet with retailers and brands and sellers. And one aspect of that is social. I think another aspect of that is, live commerce, like through eBay Live. We've seen really great success in terms of engaging in a whole new way and creating those connection points for people to kind of come and really take advantage of our asynchronous marketplace that we have here on eBay. So I think there's a whole range of things that we can do to kind of reach them where they are. But it's really about bringing the experience to life and creating kind of a lifestyle moment around that, whether that's in person, at a pop-up shop event like we did with Andrew and the myGemma team last year in New York in the Diamond District with the Luxury Exchange, or through, eBay Live events, or through different campaigns on social. I think, again, like, that common thread is just how do we connect with this generation and how do we kind of bring to life the message that we're trying to tell?
I thought the Luxury Exchange was really interesting, Nina, too.
Yeah, the team did a great job. We really enjoyed partnering with Andrew and his team on that. And it was a really, fun and exciting way for us to kind of bring to life all of the things that we're doing here at eBay and everything that Andrew and his team does day in and day out at myGemma. And just, really have it just be a fun, kind of pop-up experience that people can come and really engage in a whole new way.
So now we're going to move on to, we've touched on this here and there. We're going to talk now about the concept of trust. So how does the concept of trust, trusting what you buy, trusting the person who is selling to you, factor into consumers' decision-making processes today? And Andrew, I'm going to toss this one to you to start.
Yeah, I mean, in luxury resale, trust is, it's everything, right? A consumer doesn't shop with us unless they trust us, whether that's selling to us and being willing to ship it in to us and trust that we're going to pay them for it tomorrow, as we say we do. If it's on the vendor side, are we sending them an authentic product? Will we take the return in the next 14 days like we say we will? Right? It's all about trust. And how we build trust at myGemma is through really, two primary aspects. One is customer service. Our customer service team spends time on the phone with the customer. We don't bombard them with emails and texts. We call every customer and talk to them, educate them about our process, educate them about the company. We encourage them to read our online reviews. We encourage them to read our peers' online reviews. and then come back to us and agree to transact. Right. So it's not a hard sell. It's an educational process. And then on the sell side, it's really down to, again, trust, customer service, and authentication. And we guarantee the authenticity of the piece because we know the major brands, how they work, the quality control, the paperwork that comes with each piece. Our experienced team of authenticators have kind of put it through their process, and we guarantee it, right? So it's trust, trust, trust. I mean, it's like real estate, location, location, location. In e-commerce, it's trust, trust, trust in my mind.
So when somebody comes to sell something on your site, they get a dedicated representative.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear you say that they call them on the phone, because side note, I'm currently selling a purse on a luxury platform, and my dedicated representative actually texts with me. And there is an option. They're like, if you'd rather do this by phone, please call and we can start that way. But they start with a text, and that's the first way they reach out, that you text back and forth with them. So It's interesting to hear you say that you do the kind of old fashioned, if you will, phone call.
Yeah. We just feel that actual personal touch it's a better converter.
Oh, that's
We'll
really
text with them and email them if that's how they want to do it. If they're at work and they can't take calls, then obviously we transact how they want. But we try to do stuff by phone because it's just that personal touch.
right. They hear another person. They hear the person on the line.
I think you build trust more by speaking to somebody than you do sharing a text.
Yeah, no, agreed. Thank you, Andrew. Nina, what about eBay and building trust with consumers?
Yeah, trust for us really is table stakes, right? So if you think about a marketplace where we have both buyers and sellers as our customers, without some level of trust, we really don't have any sort of business, especially within the high price point space, like fine jewelry, watches, handbags, like we sell. Without trust, we have no foundation to build a business on, right? So I would say at the core of everything we do, all of the innovations that eBay puts out there, everything that we're doing to further the business, there's always that underlying thread of trust. So if you think about some of the recent initiatives that we've put forth in terms of authenticity guarantee for fine jewelry, for handbags, watches, in terms of authenticating items over a certain price point from certain brands, making sure that there's that thread of trust to consumers, that they know that what they're buying is authentic, that they're getting what they're expecting. But then also on the seller side, right? So we have to make sure sellers are protected as well for anything that can occur in terms of fraudulent buyers on the other end of the spectrum. So we really look at it from both lens constantly in terms of how do we continue to provide the best experience with trust to both our buyers and our sellers. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. Beyond authenticity guarantee, we just launched a certified by brand program. So to continue to bring trusted goods to consumers directly from brands or authorized resellers, everything that we are doing is circled around trust. And even as we look to future and how we're innovating the platform and things that we're looking to do, in a year's time or 10 years time, it's all setting us up to continue that message of trust. So one example of that is the recent acquisition of eBay with Certilogo, a great company out of Milan. So, as we look to the future, it's going to be increasingly important for these goods, especially as they become asset classes, to have digital traceability. So that's something that we're also starting to work on. How do we provide that for, the entire fashion space, not only just fine jewelry, watches, handbags, but in total, the whole fashion space, because I think that's going to be the next level of trust that consumers are going to be looking for from us.
Yeah, no, in fine jewelry, for certain segments in the market, traceability is going to be table stakes as well. And I think that's really smart. People are going to want to know, and for some fine jewelry, people are going to have to know where that product came from and all the stops it made along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Nina. Ben, what are your thoughts on trust?
Yeah, so when we talk about trust, we use trust as the backbone behind everything related to brand. As an agency, when it comes to marketing advertising, we talk about something we call brand impact, right? And brand impact is just an acrostic for intelligent, meaningful, powerful, active, creative, and trusted. And the backbone behind all of it is none of the other stuff matters unless you're a trusted brand. And trusted brands are ones that have built trusted businesses are ones that have built a brand, right? When you look at organizations that have strong brands, people don't buy, and this is coming from an advertiser, right? So the majority of people don't buy Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Nike, Adidas, whatever it is, because of just the display ad that they saw, right? Now, they run those because it's important, right? Nike runs ads all the time when it comes to social, display, programmatic, CTV, you name it, right? But they forget about most businesses today, especially smaller businesses, designers, independent retailers, whatever it may be. They forget about the importance of brand because they want to go straight to selling. Like if I spend $1 on this, I need X clicks and X conversions, and they're measuring it all purely on commerce. But they forget about the point of like the best brands, the most successful brands in the world are the ones that are built on brand and not built on transaction. So in that space, that's why, and also why you see a lot of designers, people like that, flocking to organizations like eBay because they're using eBay as a branded, as a trust bridge, right? They're saying, look, eBay's a trusted brand. It's been a trusted brand for decades. So boom, that's the bridge I'm using. By partnering my brand and pairing my brand up next to the eBay brand, I become a trusted seller. I become a trusted brand. And people are smart in doing that because they think that when you look at whether it's eBay, whether you look at Nike, whether you look at, it's why we partner with retailers, why brands partner with retailers, whether it's Gadget and CVS or Walgreens or a luxury brand in person or online. Brand is the key to all of it. And I think this is the next stage of where we see businesses in the jewelry and luxury space going is brand. A lot in the luxury space, like handbags, accessories, clothing, I've understood this for a long time, and they've invested millions of dollars in brand. But I think in the jewelry space, this is the next thing they're going to start to uncover and realize, like, this is what's going to set them apart. The businesses that invest in building brand are going to build trust. The ones that don't are only going to be in sort of that race to the bottom commerce transaction. How quick can I, buy the cheapest price?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think this is probably not a luxury brand, but I think one company that jumps to mind for me when we talk about how you build a brand is the sock company Bombas, which if anybody knows actually started on Shark Tank. And the whole kind of what it's built around is, charity. And that's the thing, like when you have a brand, right, and you have to have a purpose, and it's not just about like a logo and an aesthetic. It's about a purpose and values and what your brand means and stands for and what you're expressing. And then people gravitate towards brands that express the same things they feel about themselves.
Exactly. We define a brand as a promise that an organization has the opportunity to deliver on. So a brand is a promise, essentially. There's a million definitions out there, but we use that a brand is a promise that an organization has the opportunity to deliver on. And the more times you make bigger promises and the more times an organization keeps those promises, the bigger their brand equity grows.
Yeah, very true. Does anyone ever have any other thoughts about trust or brands before we move on?
I think that's great.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to talk a little bit about where do we think the fine jewelry industry is kind of falling short in terms of providing the kind of online experience that today's consumers have come to expect. I think fine jewelry's come a long way, not only in the e-commerce space, but the social space, but I still think there are other industries who are doing it better. And I'm wondering if there are any thoughts about what fine jewelry could be doing better in terms of attracting people's attention online, servicing people online, fulfilling orders online. Nina, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something we've spent quite a bit of time thinking through as we continue to innovate, especially within the fine jewelry space and how we build out our strategy. I think that, obviously pre-owned is a really big piece of this. So I think some retailers are falling short in terms of not putting enough emphasis on pre-owned within the fine jewelry space, especially as it pertains to, the luxury brands, antique jewelry, vintage jewelry. The perception is really shifting a lot from where it was previously, and I think it still has a ways to go. But I think retailers who aren't, focusing on this as a key core strategy are going to be missing out. I also think that, in terms of how we innovate, we have to keep evolving the way that we're meeting the customer expectation in terms of experience. And in not doing that, we're definitely losing out on that customer and falling short there. And I think a few of those examples in jewelry is how we're personalizing the experience, especially in fine jewelry, right? Because you could go into a very expensive high-end jewelry store and have a great one-on-one personal experience, but you might be lacking that same experience online. And I think for us in the e-commerce space, it's going to be, how do we continue to create that sense of, personalization, that sense of one-on-one personalized experience in a very large e-commerce space. And I think AI is definitely going to help propel a lot of that for us, and retailers who aren't starting to really look at how to utilize AI in a great way within fine jewelry are definitely going to be missing out. eBay, is kind of all hands on deck on AI right now in terms of how we can provide a better experience to the customers. And again, both the buyers and the sellers, right? So for buyers, how do we use AI to create a better shopping experience, help them find what they're looking for, help inspire them, help give them that personalized experience that they're looking for that oftentimes they're not getting on a website. And then from a seller side, how do we give them the tools that they need to better sell their goods in a big marketplace like eBay, where we have, billions of listings? How do we help them, get their listing to stand out and provide them with tools to provide a better listing so that they can, maximize their conversion? So I think these are some of the places that some places are, falling short of right now, that we need to start to shift more focus on in terms of how to really bring that to life within the fine jewelry space online.
Great. Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely echo what Nina just said. I mean, it's all about the shopping experience and conversion, right? I would say where some of the larger jewelry brands are, in my mind, missing out on the online shopping experience is a lot of them want the customers still to come in store to transact. They want to develop that personal relationship and have them come back and back and back. But some customers, some consumers, Gen Z, maybe millennials, they want to transact online. So if you go to some of the larger jewelry brands and you want to buy an engagement ring, you've done your homework. I mean, Gen Z and millennials do their homework. I mean, when we deal with people, they've talked to 5 other resellers to see how much they can get for their item and how much this Birkin bag is on these 6 stores, right? They've done their research. And they know that they want to buy a 1-carat X brand GVS2 solitaire engagement ring, right? But some of the larger luxury retailers won't let you buy it online. They're missing out, I think.
Well, I also think there's something to be said for, and I hear what you're saying, but also that somebody might come into your store and ask questions and look at things and touch and feel, and then want to go home and think about it and make the final decision online. And what we always tell retailers is your online store should be an extension of your physical store. It should be the same branding, the same experience, and the same feel that that person had when they were in your store. Sorry to interrupt, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But if you can't transact online, they're going to go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a trending luxury handbag brand at the moment that's super popular. There's lines outside their stores. You go to their website, you can't buy the bag, right? So you go to an online reseller, you can buy it, but it's over retail. Right? So if there's no boutique in your city, and they don't have that many in the US, then you have to pay over retail for it. Like, sell it online, sell more, right?
Yeah. I also think there's definitely a component for today's, especially younger consumers. If they see somebody doesn't sell online, that chips away at trust a little bit. You kind of be like, oh, is this a legitimate business? Like, look at how bad their website is, and they don't have e-commerce, and it just doesn't look
right.
It doesn't look like they expect it to look in 2023. Like, they expect you to have a website that looks up to date and is robust and functional like everyone else's website.
Yeah.
Ben, do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, I think one thing, it touches definitely on what both Nina and Andrew are mentioning, was I think most businesses today underestimate what it really takes to get a consumer to your site, to break through the clutter. So what you have to spend on advertising, the amount of work that you have to do to build brand. It's not just easy. Like, it's not just, set up your storefront, people walk by it, drive by it. only option in the city or whatever it may be. Like it's just not that way anymore. So when you enter the online space, you have to be competitive. You have to be smart. You have to spend money. You have to grow a brand, right? And I think most businesses underestimate what it really takes to play in the space. They want to develop a brand, they want to start a brand, or they want to build their retail presence and drive consumers to their store or online or whatever. They just grossly underestimate by a magnitude of 10 of what it really costs to do that, in both time and finance. I think the second thing is they underestimate how long it'll take, right? It's just like, really, it's going to take some time to do that. And then the third thing I think is really, when they are building commerce, they're focused on making it easy for the wrong side of the transaction. They're trying to figure out what's the easiest way I can set up my shop. What's the easiest way I can manage inventory? What's the easiest way I can undo all this stuff? And I get it. Small businesses, it's resource heavy. It's all this stuff, but it's the opposite side. It's like, if you want to build success, make it easy for the consumer. Consumers want the easy button, right? We've had millions of times where we use the example of, Uber or Airbnb or whatever it is, where it's this like invisible transaction where I see it coming here. I do all this, like the every piece of commerce that is affecting our lives outside of the jewelry purchase still affects our jewelry purchases. And so we have those same level of expectations. We don't lower our expectations as a consumer just because we're trying to buy a diamond. If anything, we increase them. Meaning, like, if I can order McDonald's online, see where it's at, have it at my doorstep, and never have to interact with a human being, have them set it on my doorstep, and the transaction's already there. Like, why can I do that with my French fries, but I can't do that if I'm willing to spend thousands of dollars on something that I should expect excellent service for, even better? So I think we underestimate as businesses in the industry of like what we need to do in terms of like making it easy. It's not easy for the organization to try to take money. It's easy for the consumer to give money. You have to make a well-defined bucket that's easy for consumers to put their dollars into. And I think that's where sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. As a side note, I would have to say that I'm rather displeased with the French fry delivery experience because I find them soggy when I get them. So I think there actually is a lot of room for improvement there. But I feel like that's a different webinar than this one.
Yeah, we need perforated bags.
So we've talked a lot about where we are today. Before we wrap up today, I want to ask you, how do you think the jewelry e-commerce experience, where are we going to be in 5 years? Like, how is this going to continue to evolve? And Andrew, I'll start with you.
I mean, we've seen aspects of like the experience improvement from a virtual try-on perspective. So you can see what the piece looks like on your wrist or on your ear. I mean, for me, I think video within the product page showing the piece is the way to go. And I'll go back to it, live stream shopping. I think that is the now and future. You get all of the aspects of shopping a luxury item without really having the need for the store.
Without having to leave your house.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Nina?
Yeah, I think it's a compilation of so many things that we've discussed here today, right? I think trust continues to be table stakes. So we're going to all have to focus very carefully on how we continue to build trust within the consumer base as we also elevate the experience, because as we continue to grow and add new innovations, new digital ways of transacting, we have to make sure that there's still that commonality of trust within that. But I think as we look towards the future, Andrew was kind of getting at this, but really it's going to be about how do we continue to elevate the experience and really make it personal, and moving away from that typical just kind of transactional e-commerce role that we've had in the past, and really bring that transaction to life, and create those really special, fun, personalized experiences that I think people are going to be looking for. And a lot of that is through AI and how we can make the experience better there. A lot of that is through e-commerce, through eBay Live and our channels there in terms of how we engage with consumers. And I think where we have, the opportunity to continue to innovate as retailers, as brands, as companies, to really anticipate the needs of where customers are going, because it's not just about where we are today, and it's not about always just looking back, but it's also how do we continue to forecast and anticipate those needs and build towards what we think customers are going to be looking for from us in the future. So I think there's going to be a ton of innovation, a lot of digital innovation. We talked about traceability. We talked about digital passports. I think that's going to become increasingly important as we buy and sell online, and continuing to really provide a really elevated experience for customers, especially within the fine jewelry space.
Thank you. Ben, thoughts on the future?
I think we're going to have 2 shifts in the next 5 years, because we're already starting to hit. If you look at the innovation curve for technology, and regardless of any technology, whether it's cars, phones, whatever it is, first you have the truly like innovative piece of it, right? Where it's cool just because it's new and it works, right? I can now buy something online. I can now talk to somebody on a cell phone, right? And then from there, after you hit the innovation piece of it, it goes into features and attributes, right? So after we had the first cell phone, it was cool that it worked. It was a giant brick. Then it was like feature phones, right? All the different features, all the different attributes, change all the buttons, change all the lights, all the Nokia, where you could change everything, customize your ringtone, all that. And then all of a sudden it went to
the
iPhone.
Razor.
Yeah. Then it went to iPhone, which was experience based, right? It went from all the features and attributes to like doesn't even have a video camera on the first iPhone. But that's where scale and growth happens. So I think over the next 3 years, we're going to start to continue the features and attributes pieces of it, right? So right now in jewelry e-commerce, we have all the different plugins and all the different pieces and all the different third-party apps, and whether it's tracing, whether it's Afterpay, whether it's yada, 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 right? All the different pieces and components that you can bolt onto your e-commerce site. And I think that's going to happen over these next 3 years still. And then after that, the next 2 years is going to be true innovation and scale. I think we're going to start to see the volume and scale happen, because after all the features and attributes are mixed in, we're going to say, okay, what really matters to streamline an experience? And all the bolt-ons are going to go to like, okay, here's what really works. And we're going to have a seamless experience for the consumer. And we're going to start to see scale and all that happen, because the big players are entered the game, right? It's no longer just the independents and stuff like that are in the space. You have eBay, you have new brands, you have startup brands that have scaled, like myGemma. You look at a million other, we could all sit here and name a million of them, right? That are starting to hit growth and maturation in that space. So once those players have hit, I think a lot of businesses are going to grossly underestimate the amount of scale and volume that is just going to happen in terms of online transactions.
Yeah, really interesting. We're almost out of time here today. Does anyone have any final thoughts here before I wrap it up on jewelry and e-commerce heading into the future?
I think, Michelle, if you'll allow me to jump in. First of all, thank you for hosting us today. This has been great, and really enjoyed spending time with Andrew and Ben as well, just to hear from everyone in terms of thoughts and the industry, where it's going, where it's been. I think final takeaways for me is, we have to continue to look towards innovation. We have to continue to provide trust to consumers. In the digital world, this is increasingly important. And one of the other things I love that I think Andrew or Ben was mentioning earlier is we also have to look at it from the user experience standpoint in terms of how we make things simple, right? With all this increasing technology in the digital space, all the new things that customers are asking of us, the common thread that we have to have in addition to trust is also simplicity. And how do we provide a really seamless user experience to both buyers and sellers on our platform? How do brands and sellers continue to emulate that as well on their side? So I think, we will rely really heavily on trust, but also on innovation to continue to propel the industry forward and provide the best experience that we can to buyers and sellers and industry people out there.
Andrew or Ben, final thoughts?
Yeah, Ben hit it the nail on the head, and Nina just reiterated it. We've seen a lot of innovations from gadgets and apps come around, and we, as myGemma, we love testing stuff, right? There's constantly new stuff that we're throwing on the site, and I think we're now at probably 9 o'clock on the day of looking at all these apps and saying, all right, the page is now too crowded, right? this one's working, these three aren't, get rid of them. And that, as Nina said, points to you want a clean and simple process. And I think that's the key. And I think we're now heading back to that, right? You've got some good apps that work and make things simple and clean and add to the trust factor. But then there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there that you just get rid of.
Yeah, and I think that to underline those is you have to be willing to try stuff.
Exactly.
And if you are, if you're really trying to plan and build to the future, then you have to move into the future. And I think that in that space, like we have to be willing to adapt and try. I think if you're still marketing to consumers the same way you were doing in 2020, you're already behind. Things move
I mean, it
fast.
moves that fast, right? That was
Yeah,
only 3 years ago.
Like do something different this year than you weren't doing last year and try stuff. Like the opportunity cost is greatly outweighing the cost of innovation today. That's the beauty of technology and where we're at today. The cost of trying something and piloting something is so little compared to the opportunity cost of missing out on something or not doing something. So I just encourage everybody to kind of move forward in there. Consumers are doing it. Consumers are willing to try something new all the time, right? And explore something. So if we're not mapping to that, then we're missing completely.
Yeah, very true. Well, Nina, Andrew, and Ben, thank you again so much for joining us today for Jewelry and the new e-commerce experience. Thank you also to our sponsor, eBay, and to New York City Jewelry Week for having us today. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion, and we hope you have a great week. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.